Thank you for joining us this evening. Our candidate forum will begin shortly. Please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Republican candidates here tonight are in the race for South Carolina's State Senate District 31. Jay Jordan and Mike Rickenbach are here to answer questions that we hope will give you a better understanding of their position on certain topics and how they plan to serve the citizens of South Carolina District 31. We want to encourage you to learn as much as you can about each candidate and, most importantly, go out and vote on January 25th. Each candidate has a Facebook page, but did you know they also make it easier for you to learn about their platform and contribute to their campaigns on their websites? Check out Mike Rickenbach's website at mikeforsc.com and check out Jay Jordan's website at jordanforsouthcarolina.com. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS Store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our candidate forum will begin shortly. Please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family.
When we start, I'm going to need y'all to please be quiet. Make sure you've silenced your cell phones, please. If you have not done that, please silence them. Good evening. My name is Mike Page, and I would like to welcome all of you to the Senate Seat 31 Forum. We are coming to you live from Florence, South Carolina, the Florence School District 1, McClinigan Administrative Annex, located in beautiful Florence, South Carolina. I'd first like to thank everyone who has made tonight possible. This forum is hosted by the Florence County Republican Party and will be broadcast on our Facebook page and by Live 95.3 radio. I would like to thank Florence School District 1 for the use of this beautiful remodeled McClinigan High School. This is truly a gem for Florence, South Carolina. The forum is scheduled to be 1 hour in length with closing remarks, so we will go a little past 8 o'clock with this. My name is Mike Page. I'm the chairman of the Florence County Republican Party. Our moderator this evening is Larry Hill, an officer with the Florence County Republican Party. We have two wonderful candidates running for the Senate Seat 31, Representative Jay Jordan and Mike Rickenbach, and I'm going to turn it over to Larry Hill.
Good evening. Prior to coming on the air tonight, the candidates drew straws to determine who will have the first question. Mr. Rickenbach will have that honor. I'll ask him to come forward now to make his opening remarks. As he's coming forward, we have agreed on a setup of 3-minute opening remarks, 3-minute response, 1 minute if a rebuttal is required, and 3 minutes for closing remarks. Mr. Rickenbach, you may start.
Good evening, everyone. Let's try that again. Good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight, and I want to thank the Florence County GOP for hosting this wonderful event. I've never run for office, so as a political outsider, it's been an incredible experience to talk to voters and to have the opportunity to earn their trust in their vote. With 5 days left, I'm excited for Election Day. I've held over 25 listening tours and meet and greet sessions with my wife, Charisse. And I feel strongly in those 25 sessions, we've had a great sense to hear from voters from across the district what's most important to them and how we can deliver that in the state Senate. But I'm also looking forward to 7 p.m. on Election Day. So the lies and the attacks that have been levied against me by my opponent will hopefully stop. Jay, we've been friends for a lot of years. And after this election, I hope we're going to be friends. And I hope when I'm serving in the state Senate and you remain in leadership in the House, we'll still be friends and we'll work for the good of the PD. But with that said, I'm going to take this opportunity to direct his campaign, his supporters, and to you personally about the misinformation that's been put out about me. You know I'm a Republican conservative. You know I registered to vote as a Republican in 1996. You know I voted for Donald Trump twice. You know I put my money where my mouth is, and I've donated tens of thousands of dollars to Republican candidates, including our Governor Henry McMaster, our U.S. Senator Tim Scott, many of the Republican politicians in this room I've donated to, and several conservative causes. You know, the only time I've ever voted in a Democratic primary was in 2020, when your campaign chairman, Representative Philip Lowe, a Republican, my representative, contacted me, as well as several other Republicans in the city limits, and said, if you live in the city, vote in the Democratic mayoral primary, because there is no Republican mayoral primary, so you can vote for the most conservative candidate. Ladies and gentlemen, based on the misinformation spread by my opponent's campaign, our team, we called the Hunt County, Texas Elections Office and the Secretary of State of Texas. You know what we heard? Neither office has documentation regarding Jay's allegations. So let me be crystal clear. I have never voted for Barack Obama. I have never voted for Hillary Clinton. I have never voted for Joe Biden. And I have voted for President Donald Trump twice. And I hold in my hand an official government document showing that I voted in the Republican primaries back in 2000, an official government document, and another document, a government document showing that I have voted in multiple Republican primaries here in South Carolina, contrary to the document that is posted on my opponent's website. So I'm going to here tell you one thing. I'm going to use whatever resources available to get to the bottom of these false allegations. Thank you, Mike. And whether they're fraudulent documents or voter fraud, whomever is responsible is going to be held accountable. This isn't about Jay's attacks. It's about every person here in the PD, and it's about providing for the district a conservative, business-minded senator who's going to end politics as usual and hold those accountable who would represent us. I look forward to sharing my thoughts tonight in my contract with the PD to ensure accountability as your next state senator.
Thank you so much. I'll just go ahead and address it. Mike, you don't owe me an explanation. You owe them an explanation. So to stare at me, I don't think accomplishes much. But to answer the question, now I too have been provided documentation, and if I stand behind the documentation I've been provided that one, Jonathan Michael Rickenbach, address of 4001 Interstate Highway 30, Greenville, Texas, in Hunt County, which, by the way, is a Ford dealership, with the same date of birth and a male, party affiliation Democrat, last vote on 3/4/2008. I can only go by the documentation that's provided for me. This documentation, if you don't trust it, came from the Republican National Committee. And I think that's, in my mind, a reliable resource. The other thing I'll address also out the gate, Philip Lowe's my friend as well. He's a good representative. He has the credibility, I think, because he's voted in many, many Republican primaries in Florence County to do that. I'll tell you this, what I've learned in Columbia is two things. Your vote and your credibility are irreplaceable. Irreplaceable. When someone tries to convince you to vote, you better make sure it's the right thing to do. You better not be pulled off to go do something you really regret or don't want to do. But that's neither here nor there. The message at hand. I love this community. And I do believe Mike and I were friends and are friends and will be friends once we get to the other side of this river, because we both love this community. We just have different ways of experiencing it, showing it. My love came for this community from growing up in this community. My wife and I were both raised here, and it didn't take long for us to decide that we wanted to raise our family here. And that's the big reason I'm committed to it and believe in it so much. And now as I've gotten a little further down the road and have a 15-year-old, I can see the next future, part of the future off in the distance. And I want them more than anything to want to raise their children here one day. Tara, a long time away, not anytime soon. But the point is, that's not going to happen accidentally. It's not going to happen unless we work together, pull together, and build the best possible Florence going forward. I believe I'm the most prepared, capable candidate to do the job. I've had the pleasure and privilege of representing Florence in the South Carolina House for 6 years now. I've learned a couple things. I've learned that, again, if you succeed at the State House and represent your community well, that doesn't happen accidentally. You have to be prepared to do the work. You have to know the process, and you have to know the people. When you send me to the South Carolina Senate, I might be starting over, but I will not be starting from scratch. I'll know the process and I know the people. Florence, I will tell you, whoever gets this job is following in some big shoes in Senator Leatham, and there's a lot of people in this state that feel like Florence got more than our share. I need to be able to go over there and convince them that as Florence goes, so goes the entire PD region. And as the PD region goes, that's a big chunk of South Carolina that we all love about and care about so very much. So I'm running out of time, but I'll tell you this. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for taking time to dig into this, because here's what I'll tell you. The bottom line is, you need to determine, are we who we say we are? I have had 6 years to prove to you I am exactly who I say I am. And I believe my voting record, despite being attacked as well in a manipulated sort of way, we'll get to that later, but I believe I've done just that. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will start the questions now. I will announce the topic first and then read the question. I will tell both candidates that these questions are specific to South Carolina, to seat 31, to Florence, and to the PD. So please remember that as you go along. There are only a couple of two-part questions in here. The first question is on immigration. The Biden administration has been caught moving illegal and untested immigrants around the country under the cover of night. Assuming that these illegals have been deposited in South Carolina, what issues will they bring in the future, and what does the legislature need to do to prepare for those issues? Mr. Rickenbach.
I'd say regarding immigration, the first thing we need to do is we need to praise President Trump for him building the wall. That was a move that should have happened a long time ago, and we appreciate what he did. This keeps going off here. We appreciate what President Trump did in building the wall, and again, he needs to be praised for doing that. Regarding South Carolina and the influx of illegal immigration, we need to follow the rule of law. Our law enforcement officers need to be able to enforce the laws that are on the books. A law doesn't matter if we don't enforce it. So without question, we need to support our law enforcement officers and allow them to enforce the laws. And when they do enforce the laws, we need to make sure we have judges that don't allow a rotating door where those folks that are arrested are allowed to be back out in just a few short hours. So without question, we need to continue doing what we have done in South Carolina, which is enforce the rule of law and let our law enforcement do what they need and have the support and the funding, because I will never, ever allow law enforcement to not be fully funded and to be fully supported to do that work that they have to do. It's way too important to what we have.
Thank you.
Immigration's a serious issue. We don't have an immigration problem as much as we have a Biden problem, in my opinion. I stand with President Trump. If you want to fix immigration, you vote for President Trump next time he runs. That's how you fix immigration in this country. That's the bottom line. Immigration, the border is a national security issue. It's an economic issue. It's a law enforcement issue. And if we don't secure our border as a core government function of what the federal government's supposed to do, then we're going to have a myriad of problems like we've already seen as a result of that one issue. I'll tell you what I have learned in this campaign, though. I've learned I have many things in common with President Trump. One of those things, if we're going to talk about a tax, is the Club for Growth. I'm looking at some documentation that shows the Club for Growth spent millions trying to destroy Donald Trump. Donald Trump calls the Club for Growth a phony outfit. These are some of the attacks I referenced earlier that have manipulated my record in the State House. I think I'm in good company. The fact that the Club for Growth is attacking me like they attacked Donald Trump. And I'll be happy to stand on Team Trump as opposed to the Club for Growth. Now, my opponent needs to explain why he is not just a member of the organization, but a fellow within the Club for Growth. That when you pull up their website, his picture and bio show up on that organization. You can't praise President Trump on the one hand and then be a major member of an organization that attacks him. And oh, by the way, attacks me and manipulates my record. Thank you.
Get a rebuttal? I get 1 minute, correct? Okay. It's the partial truths that so many voters are tired of, that we've heard time and time again. The Club for Growth, like so many others, were unsure how President Trump would preside. But yet, after he got into office, and I quote, they labeled President Trump a free market conservative and endorsed him moving forward because actions spoke louder than words. But if we want to talk about actions, and we want to talk about what somebody is going to do based upon their history, who in this room wants to raise taxes? By a show of hands. Who wants wasteful spending? Who wants corporate bailouts? Yet my opponent voted for the largest tax increase in our state's history, and our opponent is the one who voted for a bailout, a holdout for the Carolina Panthers, over $100 million for a couple hundred jobs. And what did those jobs do for the PD? We want to talk about what's good for the PD, not what's good for special interest groups.
So yes, I will actually own up to the issue. I voted for the gas tax. I didn't want to vote for the gas tax, but I felt like it was the right thing to do to fix our state. When I got to the State House 6 years ago, we had some of the worst roads in the country. We were losing industry. You ever heard of a company called Sunoco? They were threatening that they were not going to expand anymore and didn't want to be a part of South Carolina because we weren't investing in our state. We were having trouble attracting new industry. At the end of the day, we needed a solution, and I put politics aside to do the right thing to fix our roads because that's what had to happen. When you want to talk about the Carolina Panthers, you want to talk about half-truths, that's an issue that the governor wholeheartedly supported, that I was happy to vote with him on. The reality is that's an incentive-based deal that the Panthers don't get anything that they don't earn through meeting the criteria and bringing jobs to South Carolina. Right now, if you go up to that area right now, there's over 400 jobs working right now as a result of that construction that's going on. There's going to be 400 more added over the next 2 years. That is going to be an economic engine for that part of the state. It's going to be, and it's also gets us in the running to hopefully host the NFL stadium there in the future. Thank you.
Representative Jordan, the next question is yours if you'll return. The next topic is term limits. Many voters would like to see a return to the volunteer statesman politician like the founders who penned our Constitution. If term limits became a resolution before the South Carolina Senate, how would you vote and why?
Well, let me start off by saying I actually very much believe in term limits, especially when you're talking about in the federal level. The reality is that term limits are something we shouldn't need, but I don't think there's going to be many other alternatives to actually fix Washington. Now, understand the difference in Washington and Columbia. You go to Washington, you make over $170,000 a year, Cadillac retirement program. It's a situation, the situation that's been created is folks in D.C. care more about keeping that job than doing that job. In South Carolina, that $10,400 a year paycheck isn't anywhere akin to the $170,000 plus year paycheck. Secondly, we don't operate year-round. It's a part-time citizen legislature type situation. We work 3 days a week and drive back and forth. I couldn't do it if I didn't have the privilege of living here in Florence so that I can take my kids to school in the morning, go to Columbia on the days I need to be there, and most times be home to have dinner at home. Having said that, you asked a question directly pertaining to the South Carolina Senate and term limits. I would love to see what the legislation looks like. Here's what I've learned also by being in Columbia. You can't commit until you see what the details in the legislation, but I would absolutely be in favor of considering term limits at every level.
Not only do I talk about term limits, my contract to the PD, my 10-point contract, number 2 is introducing term limit legislation. Accountability is important in a public servant. It may not be important to a politician, but it's important to a public servant. And that means when you see me in the grocery store out on the street, you say, Mike, that 10-point contract you agreed to, how's it going? Did you introduce term limit legislation? And I'll tell you why term limit legislation is so important, because it helps avoid special interest groups. I would like to know, not only would my counterpart over here get behind term limits, but then what it would cost him, because we talk about special interest groups. And if you look at it as disclosure, why did the South Carolina trial lawyers give $1,000 per PAC when $1,000 is the max per entity to Representative Jordan? Talk about getting into that gray area that people are so tired of. So when it's Justice PAC 1, Justice PAC 2, Justice PAC 3, all the way to Justice PAC 10, all checks written on the same date, all from the same address. So we want to talk about special interests and what special interests do. What special interests do is allow one to wonder, what does Jay owe the trial lawyers when they would give him $1,000 10 times over again on the same day to the same address? With term limits, we can avoid the career politicians and get to what our founding fathers expected, which is you work and then you go serve and then you go back to work, and you have to work under the same laws you created, not stay in the ivory tower and then live under that and live under those laws that you created. That's why we need more business people. No disrespect to attorneys. A lot of good attorney friends. When I need an attorney, I call an attorney. I don't call a plumber, I call an attorney. But by the same token, we need more fresh, new perspectives in Columbia, not folks that are going to be able to live under the same laws that they create and then get checks 10 times over again from the same organization, but folks that bring fresh ideas, fresh perspectives. Term limits make for a healthier, better, fresher government.
I'm a lawyer. You may want to take me out back and beat me up because of that, but I'm guilty. I'm a lawyer. So you should be surprised if lawyers don't give to my campaign. If I haven't earned the trust of the fellow lawyers in the community, then there's something wrong with what I'm doing for a living, okay? The bigger question, here's what I'm proud of. I'm proud of that right here in this campaign, my campaign has raised just over $250,000. I didn't put a single dollar into that campaign. That came from my friends, neighbors, colleagues, and I'm proud of that. I didn't write a check for $250,000 in order to go get a job that pays $10,400 a year. I called and asked my friends and colleagues to support me in this effort, and I wouldn't have had the guts to do that had I not have a record to stand on that proves. If you want to ask questions about, am I bought and paid for anybody, look at my record. The fact is, you saw fit, folks in Florence, to send me back to the House on multiple occasions, and I'm thankful for that privilege. But if there's something wrong, go back and look at my record and see if that's the case or not. Thank you.
Well, on that point, Representative Jordan and I completely agree. Well, I'm just going to keep using this mic, I think. Here we go. We agree that you can look at his record, and you could wonder why there is a need for such transparency when the trial lawyers skirt the rules and give not $1,000 per entity, $1,000 10 times over again on the same date from the same address. It makes you wonder why. So my wife and I have given hundreds of thousands of dollars to the community charities. Out of our own, we don't talk about it, we don't brag about it, we just give it. So when we decided to run for office, we decided we're not going to owe anybody. No special favors, no special interest, write the check so that when we make decisions, we don't have to call the trial lawyers and say, hey, remember those checks that you wrote over and over and over? There's no calls that we take. We take what is best for the PD. What do you need in Johnsonville? What do you need in Scranton, in Coward, in Pamplico, in Florence, in Darlington? That's our concern, not the special interests, not those that write checks. We didn't hold a fundraiser before the first disclosure because at the end of the day, we owe you, not the people.
Mr. Rickenbaugh, the next question is yours. I hope that you will both give special attention to this topic. The topic is pandemic. And in the hall tonight, I've heard many questions, all that tie into the topic of pandemic. So the question is, many conservatives have established Governor DeSantis and the Florida approach as a model for dealing with the pandemic. He has led the state in formulating common sense guidelines, often in defiance of federal mandates. What have you seen in Florida's actions that need to guide South Carolina in the future?
Well, that is a great question, and I think there are two words that come to mind when I talk about what Governor DeSantis has done and that we're so proud of. And by the way, the Club for Growth is a tremendous supporter of Governor DeSantis because he keeps taxpayers first. He says it's your money. But what he has done regarding the pandemic is that he has said liberty and freedom. There is no reality where in this country you should be made and forced to get a vaccine if you don't want a vaccine. You shouldn't be forced to wear a mask if you don't want a mask. You want to get a vaccine? Get them. Get boosted. Wear a mask in your car when you're by yourself. Never quite sure why I see people do that, but some people do it when they're alone. You get a choice to make whatever decision you want. And what Governor DeSantis is done, and what I'm so proud of, is that he has said we're going to put our people, our personal liberties, and our freedoms first. Government, when they try to fix the problem, they have a great way of making it worse. So he has pushed back against government outreach or overreach at the federal level. When President Biden continues to push and push and push to invade our lives and invade our space and then causes inflation to hit 7%, people not to work. People make more money not working under President Biden than they do working. That is ludicrous. What I'm proud of is that we've got a state where we work. We want to work, but we have to incentivize people to work. The good book, the Bible says, if you don't work, you don't eat. Why would we incentivize people not to work? So what Governor DeSantis has done is created a policy and an atmosphere where you are encouraged to work, but then you're free to work. You're not under mandates. I am against government mandates. I think people should have the freedom and the liberty to do what is best for them, what is best for the children, what is best for their families. And I'm proud to be an American because we're a country that supports that.
So Florida's done a good job. I'll be the first to say that. But I also want to talk about what South Carolina has done. I believe I stand completely behind our governor and the approach he took with South Carolina. He loves to say South Carolina we don't need to reopen because we never closed. And that's why our economy has taken off like a rocket ship compared to other places that are still feeling the effects because they're still coming in and out of shutdowns. The bottom line is we can't shut down. We have to move forward. We have to keep going forward and keep working and keep the doors open of South Carolina so that we can be what we need to be. A couple things I'll tell you about that I'm very proud of that we did during the pandemic. Number one, I'm very proud to have worked on the Religion is Essential bill. It says that you can't, when we do have you look around the country and you've seen some states that have closed churches as a result of the pandemic. We're lucky and fortunate that we have a governor that said he would never stand between the people of South Carolina and their worship of God. Why do we need a Religion is Essential bill? We don't know who the governor's going to be in 5 or 10 years, so we need to establish very clear parameters going forward that in South Carolina, if you want to go to church, the government can't tell you not to go to church. The second thing, and this goes back to staying open for business and our economy. That's why our economy continues to hum. That's why we have almost $6 billion in reserves that we're going to give back in giving that money back to the taxpayer because you earned a lot of that, or you earned that money. And lastly, when it comes to the pandemic, things we learned that we've got to pay more attention to broadband. We live in a part of South Carolina that it was exposed during the course of the virtual situation. We need to invest more into our broadband. Broadband technology is as vital to industry and education as is anything else. So we continue to invest in the core government functions so that we can be better as a state, as the PD, and as Florence County. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, because we are a capitalist country and not a socialist country, we need to take a commercial break.
Thank God, Larry.
We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS Store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS Store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS Store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS Store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family.
Welcome back. The next question goes to Representative Jordan. It is a topic that I never thought would be a matter of public discourse, and that is gender. It's a two-part question. What are your brief definitions of human gender? And how will you approach the Saving Women's Sports bill to be considered
You're a politician. I don't have a political answer for something as simple as that. That's sad to say. It's a sad state of affairs. The simple answer for me is very straightforward. God made them male and female, straight from Genesis chapter, straight from the book of Genesis. Now, the reality is, I'll go back to what I said a second ago. I don't have a political solution for that. That is so much deeper than that. That is a cultural problem that we have a responsibility, is, in my opinion, is if you're a Christian, we have a responsibility in this to be the salt and the light, to say that's not right in a loving way, but say it's not right. Now, as it pertains to the Save Our Women's Sports bill, I voted for that. I support that bill. I voted for it in committee, and I believe we're going to pass that bill. We shouldn't need to pass that bill, but I believe we're going to pass that bill because it's creating unfair competition. The reality is, if you're a male, you're usually bigger, stronger, faster, and it's not fair for someone to wake up one day and say, I want to be a female, and therefore I'm going to be able to compete in sports against females. I also will tell you I support Representative McKnight's bill, who's just filed it, I believe, last week or this week, that says if you're going to try and do some kind of gender alteration surgery, you got to be at least 18 before you can do that. Also, crazy that we need such a bill such as that. But again, I voted for in committee the Save Women's Sports bill, and straight out of Genesis, it's a simple answer when it comes to gender. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe this question is really a two-part answer. The first part is the role of government, and I believe the role of government is to help protect our young women who have a desire to play sports and there's no reality where they should have to worry about a male entering into their arena. Secondly, there is never a reality where we should allow a male in a female's restroom. Not only is it wrong, it's unsafe. So I believe we need to continue to push for the biblical definition of male and female, but then we have to protect our young people in particular. 85% of Republicans agree that we have to make sure we support and we defend our females, especially our young people. So it's a travesty that we're having to have this conversation about, do we protect them or do we not? I will say, from a non-political standpoint, every one of us, whether we're a public servant in politics or whether we're a regular person who just goes to work like the majority of us, we have to pray. We have to pray for a return to the biblical standards that God laid out. There's a reason why this country was founded on those biblical principles, and there's a reason why, as we move farther and farther away from them, we run into questions like, do we allow a male to go into a female's bathroom, or do we allow a male to compete against a female because he decides he's now a she? Those are the types of conversations that need to be happening at home, need to be happening in church, need to be happening in arenas just like this, because the problem's not getting better, it's getting worse. And until we, as conservative, as Republicans, as Christians, stand up and say, enough is enough, it's going to continue to erode at the fabric of who we are.
I want to remind you that we are trying to use a 3-minute time limit, especially with this next topic, which is qualification. It's a two-part question. In an unusual election featuring two well-received candidates, what part of your history and what singular quality makes you the best man for the job?
So what part of my history and what singular quality makes me the best person for the job? I would say the part of my history that makes me the best candidate for the job is that I am an outsider who is not part of the machine, the political apparatus, with a business background, creating jobs, managing payroll, working to create opportunities for families. you go to sleep with a different perspective at night. If you look at President Trump, what made him so effective, he wasn't a politician. He understood business. There's a room in the General Assembly for attorneys. There's room for non-attorneys. But having it so imbalanced creates narrow focus. So the business background is what we hear over and over and over as we crisscross the district. People in the PD want an outsider's perspective. They're not part of the establishment. They're not part of the mechanism that has been doing it. They want fresh ideas and fresh perspectives that considers the regular people, those that get up and pay taxes and worry about the roads, worry about how much you're going to have at the end of each paycheck to pay the bills. So that would be the single biggest quality. What was the second part of that question, Larry?
The first was, what about your history makes you the best, and what singular quality makes you the best? That's the second part.
Okay, so the history, as I mentioned, is the business. The quality is the ability to bring in the perspective to say, if we don't have the money, we can't spend it. If people across the PD don't have the money, they can't spend it. We have got to enforce that type of financial rigor where in government, if they don't have it, they can't spend it. But if there's some left over, give it back to the taxpayers. Don't have the largest tax increase. Don't continue to spend because it's there. Let's give it back to the people because, folks, it isn't our money that we're always spending. It's our kids' money and our grandchildren's money in generations to come. So that ability to look from a perspective of it isn't ours, we're fighting for generations. The financial rigor that we can bring today is going to either burden or it's going to lighten future generations.
So I've told you I believe I'm the most prepared candidate to actually go do the job, and I'll give you some reasons why. Some of them are pretty simple. I've learned more from being a husband and a father than about anything in my life. I've learned compassion. I've learned responsibility. I've learned let your yes be your yes and your no be your no through those roles in my life as a husband and a father. That commitment it takes, that responsibility it takes. Other things in my life, being a Sunday school teacher and helping people when they have difficulties in their life. That's, I believe, brought me in to be who I am. Being a business owner myself, yes, in fact, lawyers do have to operate as if it's a business. I have employees. I have to sign the front of the check more than I sign the back of the check, and I have to balance that payroll and pay my tax obligations and do all the things in order. I may not be a big business, but I can tell you for the 3 or 4 of us that depend on that for our income, we take it pretty seriously. And then I'll go back to some things I've said before as having the privilege of being your state representative. There are 2 reasons why you send someone to Columbia: to pass good legislation. I think I've established that I've done that in many different ways, whether it be some of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit, the heartbeat bill, whether it be pro-Second Amendment legislation, despite what you may have seen in the mailbox or heard, whether it be the business license bill, which I believe will help small businesses like mine going forward as it comes into fruition this year. And then the second thing you send someone to Columbia for is to stop the bad things. And my friends, I'll tell you, with everything going on in Washington, that may be more important right now than the first thing. You know, things like mandates and federal government overreach. I was proud to go to Columbia for an emergency session in December after we got done with the redistricting and say, we can't have these federal mandates coming down on top of us. If you want to take the vaccine, that's great. Take the vaccine. But you shouldn't even worry about having to lose your job as a result of a government mandate. And I was proud to pass legislation that I believe protects our citizens from those type situations. So I would tell you, it's the person I believe I've become over these 41 years, not through anything I've done, through the good Lord, through the assistance of my family and friends who've always stood by me and supported me, and I hope I've done that for them too. And then it's the kind of the things I've learned. When I first got to to Columbia, I was number 124. I knew it because they told me every day, it felt like for a month, hey, 124. I felt like I was the last guy in the NFL draft. But I learned my way around. I learned my way through the process. I learned my way through the relationships. When I need something, when Florence needs something now, I can go to the chairman of Ways and Means, Merle Smith, and say, Merle, let me tell you what's important in Florence and why we need to fund this piece of, why we need to fund this item and why we need to work together. Thank you.
The next topic is abortion. Our heartbeat bill of 2021 hopefully will expand to include opportunities for foster and adoptive care in South Carolina. What measures would you like to see included in this expansion?
So let me go back a second and address, since we're talking about the heartbeat bill, South Carolina has a great history of being a truly pro-life state. That didn't just happen. I was proud to participate in that since I've been in Columbia as we work towards passing pro-life legislation. Life is sacred, and if we have a duty and responsibility, that's near the top of the list of what are truly the most important issues you send someone to Columbia for. I was proud to work on the heartbeat bill. It just so happens I was looking through my desk just this last week, and I found a copy. Perhaps you can see this. This is an actual bill signed by the governor. It's got the red ribbon on it, and it's got a note from the governor thanking me for working on this bill. This is one of my most proudest possessions. The truth is, I didn't deserve a note for this. This is kind of like my father-in-law told me one time, this is like getting an award for brushing your teeth. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. So the bottom line is this, Larry, I'll stand up for life. I'll work on every piece of legislation that I think can better our pro-life position here in South Carolina, because life is given from God, it's sacred, and we have an obligation to protect. And I'll also say, Mike, I've heard your story a number of times, and we can go back and forth on the issues, but I want to tell you it's a beautiful story, and I will not let the moment pass without telling you it truly is a beautiful story. Thank you.
There are very few topics that are as near and dear to me. And many of you have heard my story, and I'm going to be brief because I got Mike over here with us a red card. My biological mother was 14, and my biological father was 15. I had every reason to have been aborted. And they chose life, despite all the encouragement, despite all the folks who were warning them about what would happen if they didn't. But she chose life, and she gave me up for adoption into a family that loved me and supported me and taught me about hard work and discipline. And they taught me that where you start has absolutely no bearing on where you end up going in life, that God has a plan. When the word says that life begins at conception and he knew us in the palm of his hand, I believe every word of that. That's my story. That's our son's story. Many people say, did you really adopt him? We sure did. I know he kind of looks like me, but he's our son every bit. And he likes to tell our daughter that, you know, Olivia, they kept you, but they got to choose me. So he likes to go there. But adoption is so important. Life is so important. Last month, Sharice and I were invited by the governor and by the lieutenant governor to the Governor's Summit on Adoption and Foster Care. Because as being pro-life, it doesn't just end with, okay, now the woman has given birth. We've got to help support the adoption process, the foster care process, to make sure that the end goal isn't the birthing. The end goal is somebody who understands that they have value, that they are loved, that they can be a contributing member of society. So I am unwavering in pro-life. Life begins at conception. I will fight for that. I will support and I will sponsor legislation for that. And again, I will go back to, we need to pray for that, because what is at stake isn't a blob. What is at stake is a Mike Rickenbaugh. and an Isaiah Rickenbaugh, and my brother Matt Rickenbaugh, people that could be forgotten and would be a whisper until they got to heaven. But what we and the rest of them can do to this country, to this state, to this region, if given not just the opportunity of life, but then also given the support of a church and of a community that will come around these young women, and especially the crisis pregnancy centers, and say, let us help you walk this journey. We're going to see so many lives change as a result of that.
Thank you. At this point, we'll take another commercial break.
Yep.
We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS Store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS Store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. We are on a short break and will return soon. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and please take a moment to help us spread the word by liking and sharing this event with your friends and family. The Florence County Republican Party wants to give special recognition to a few of those who have made tonight possible. Florence One Schools for allowing us to use their facilities, Live 95.3 and the Florence UPS store for providing the radio broadcast, and One Reason Media for providing the Facebook live stream. We also want to thank Larry Hill for being our moderator this evening. We are on a short break and will return soon.
Yep.
Wow.
Be about 30 seconds. Come back about 30 seconds.
30-second warning. 30-second warning. And we're back. Due to some power problems at Live 95, we've got some flexibility tonight, so we're going to keep on going based on the interest of folks here and what we're seeing online. The next question goes to Mr. Rickenbaugh. The topic is critical race theory. The South Carolina legislature will soon be considering a bill to remove inclusion of CRT in South Carolina schools. What are your views on CRT, and what must the bill seek to do?
Thank you for the question, Larry. I believe CRT, critical race theory, is ridiculous and it's wrong. And I'll tell you why. You heard a little bit about my story, and you can probably tell from looking at me that I'm black, and my biological mother was black, and biological father was black. But my family, who adopted me at birth, was white. And in the early 1970s, that wasn't a typical move to make. But my family, they didn't just embrace my color, they enriched it, and they would teach me about hard work and discipline and kindness and faith, and that the color of your skin in no way dictates your future. Critical race theory does a great job of dividing us. It doesn't unite us. CRT allows people to become victims of a bigger system and it actually discourages them from realizing their own potential. So I'm very much against CRT because of that division that it creates and because of that victim mentality. Any legislation that we have needs to remove it. And instead, how about we teach our young people of all colors, of all ethnicities, of all races, that you have the opportunity in the greatest nation in the world, in the greatest time to be in this nation. So it doesn't matter if you live in Darlington or Scranton or Effingham or Coward or Pamplico or Florence or Johnsonville, you name it, you've got an opportunity to do more now than you've ever done. And I believe in that opportunity because I've lived that opportunity, as have so many others. Thank you.
I will not need 3 minutes for this explanation or answer. CRT, to me, is very simply, in the PD, we call it hogwash. The reality is, it's an opportunity for the Democrats, liberals, to divide us. There's no good to come from it. I'm proud that in last year's budget, I supported a proviso that said to school districts, if you teach CRT, we're going to hold your funding back, because it has no place in South Carolina. Thank you.
Representative Jordan, the next question is yours, and the topic is medical marijuana. It appears that the first bill to be considered in the new session will be medical marijuana. What are your views, and how would you vote?
So, medical marijuana, let me give you some background. First off, I would never stand between someone who desperately needs medical attention and treatment, and there's a prescribed solution to that a physician, a qualified physician, says this is something that could help them. But medical marijuana is so much more than that we have to be so careful with. Let me give you a quick example. A couple years ago, Tara and I took the kids on a little trip. We went out to Colorado. I'm in the cab talking to the driver, and all he wanted to talk about was the ills facing Colorado, specifically Denver, where we were, as a result of how they were dealing with marijuana. Marijuana is a dangerous drug. You need to look at what law enforcement says. There's a reason why our sheriff is against, has strong concerns dealing with marijuana. It's a drug. Having said that, there are some places, the reality is this: the Senate is debating that bill, and who knows what that bill is going to look like when it actually comes to fruition. I've seen the Senate do some crazy things. So if you're talking about legalization of marijuana, I'm absolutely against that. If you're talking about a very controlled situation, for instance, I think there are some states that set it up where if they set up a program within the medical university of that state, they establish a criteria, and if you meet the criteria and you're accepted into the program, and a physician can monitor the treatment and determine if you qualify for the care and the care is working for you, that's a different story. The other thing that we need to be clear about with marijuana, and this is, I think, being debated in the Senate, there are lots of different versions of this. I think in the Senate version right now, it's not a smokable marijuana. So don't get in your mind that issue of it. But the reality is this: I'll wait and see what the Senate passes, because I think they're going to do it this week, and I'll reserve my final determination exactly how I'm going to vote. I'll tell you this: I've seen this so many times. I saw it just last year when it comes to gun legislation. In the House, we sent over two really good pro-Second Amendment pieces of legislation, and we did that because we didn't want the Senate to wiggle off the hook like they have to do. They'll say, we want to pass something that's good for South Carolina, and then they'll wiggle off the hook by getting funny with the legislation. That's something they could absolutely do with medical marijuana, and that's why I want to be your senator to try and fix the problem.
As a 20-plus year commissioned volunteer law enforcement officer who's spent thousands and thousands of hours in patrol cars working with law enforcement, I am unequivocally and completely against recreational marijuana. But as we talk about medicinal marijuana, I'm also a parent. And the value, one of the many values of that 25 location listening tour, as you crisscross and you hear from people. You don't talk, you listen to people. What we hear is when you've got an 8-year-old daughter who is suffering from cancer, and that medicinal marijuana helps ease her symptoms, are we really prepared to tell that parent and that little girl, you have to go to another state to get relief from your symptoms of cancer? This isn't a long-haired hippie who doesn't want to go to work. This is an 8-year-old little girl who is riddled with cancer. So I believe medicinal marijuana, if administered correctly, if controlled appropriately, if under the doctor's prescription, and if it can truly be shown to ease the symptoms of those that are suffering, not only is it good policy, it's the right Christian thing to do. We're supposed to love our neighbor and love our brother. And that little girl and that mom and that dad and that entire family, they deserve the opportunity to ease their pain if it can be done in a controlled and reasonable manner. Thank you.
The next topic is a big topic for South Carolina, and it is education opportunity. What are your views on educational choice to be determined by parents and not the government? And how would you vote when this bill is considered later in this session?
I think the key word you said there was parental choice. Those were the words. Parents and teachers and those that are closest to the educational process and to the families, they are the best equipped to choose what's best for their children. I support school choice because competition is better in our business, and that's why a business perspective is so needed in the General Assembly. In our business, if we are not the best opportunity for customers, they'll go somewhere else. The same applies to education. Why wouldn't we want the same principles to apply to government? Be competitive because competition makes us better. But bureaucracy at a government level, trying to decide for parents what is best, is a fool's errand. Parents, teachers, those closest to the families should be the ones choosing what is best for their families, so I would support school choice all day long.
So somewhere along the way, we got into a back and forth on education in this state and perhaps in this country between private education and public education. And the reality is everyone wants the same thing. We want to educate our children to the best possible level. So I believe in order to do that, we have to change the model. Education has essentially been the same model now for 100 years plus. And guess what has changed during that time? Everything else. Now, I believe competition is exactly what we need to try and push education forward, but it doesn't have to come at the expense of public education. Public education is a core responsibility, and we have to do a good job. Otherwise, we're not preparing our children for the future. We're not preparing them to go get that job, to earn that living, to prepare for their family's future. I'll tell you, in my life, my wife and I have made the decision that we want our children to be in Christian school, and we pay for that. And we believe there's value in that because I want my children to start the day in school with prayer, and I want them to study God's Word, and I want them to develop a biblical worldview for the surroundings in their life. That's not what everyone wants. That's what we choose. But we're not enemies of public education because of that. I'll tell you this, since I've been in the State House, I've fought for better public education. I've done I've worked with the governor and the rest of the Republicans in the House to make sure that there is a school resource officer in every school, that there's a counselor in every school, that every child has access to a counselor when they need one. And I've worked at every turn to increase teacher pay. When I got to the State House, and I'm not taking total credit for this, was a team effort. South Carolina was way below where it should be when it comes to teacher pay. And every time we've had the opportunity, we've increased teacher pay so that now we're actually competitive in the Southeast when it comes to teacher pay. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. But we're more than capable of meeting the challenge.
Gentlemen, I'm going to skip one of the questions that I had put out as a topic, and that has to do with crime prevention. I think you both have alluded to the fact that you support the right things when it comes to judges, when it comes to police, and when it comes to being incarcerated. So we're going to skip that one. And I promised both of you a zinger. So we're going to now move to the zinger. And Representative Jordan, this zinger goes to you. It has to do with qualification. Listen carefully. If you are unsuccessful in your primary bid, what will be the most important attribute that your opponent will take to the Senate?
I don't even want to think in those terms, Larry. I mean, you got to be positive if you're going to be prepared to go to the South Carolina Senate. Here's how I'll answer that question. Whoever the next senator is, it goes back to what I said a little while ago, needs to be prepared. What did I tell you earlier in the evening? You have two things that are sacred, your credibility and your vote. When you show up in Columbia, like I said before, I was number 124. I didn't know where the bathroom was, much less how to pass legislation and stop legislation. But you know what? I was lucky. I was part of I got to sit next to another Republican in the House. And I know Representative Lowe got tired of me saying, what was that? What did we just do? When's lunch? All those things. And I learned my way. I learned my way through that process. And I learned the relationships associated with the people in the House. The Senate is not such. When you go to the Senate, you're the senator from Florence. You better be prepared on day one to do the job to represent the people of Florence. That's the thing that the senator needs the most, to be prepared, because when you walk through that door, you better have credibility, and you better never blow that credibility, because once that credibility is blown, it's one of those things you will never get back.
So repeat that zinger again, Larry, so make sure I answer it.
If you are unsuccessful in your primary bid, what will be the most important attribute your opponent takes to the Senate?
Yeah. I believe the most important attribute Representative Jordan would bring to the Senate is predictability. We all have a record when you're a legislator, and you live by that record. If you vote for the largest tax increase in our state's history, you live on that record. If you vote for the Carolina Panthers bailout, you live with that. It doesn't make you a bad person, it just means you live with that record. If you vote for taxpayer-funded lobbyists, you live with that record. It's a record. I go to the state Senate, I'll have a record of voting, and then I will be judged based upon that record. That's one reason why I am such a fan of U.S. Senator Tim Scott and what he does. He lives on his record. By the way, last time I was with the Club for Growth, he was our keynote speaker as one of the most endorsed politicians with the Club for Growth, because U.S. Senator Tim Scott understands you live and you die in politics on your record. You vote for tax increases, you're known for it. You vote against them, you're known for it. So I think what people would get, what they expect from my opponent, is a record, and then you can look at that record based upon what he's voted for. At the end of every session, I would ask that people would want to hold accountable their legislators and say, tell me why you voted for that tax increase. Tell me why you voted to bail out this. Tell me why you voted to increase or to allow lobbying to be funded by the government. Those are the types of questions that we have to live with. When I was first approached by some in the community about running, they said, don't disrupt the process. We got a plan in place. Don't disrupt it. Jay has a record. We know what he's going to do. We know how he's going to do it. You're an unknown. What we're hearing across our listening tour, people like disruption. They liked President Trump's disruption. That's why I voted for him twice. They like the disruption of an outsider who will come in and will say, I don't owe anybody. I don't know the system. I'm going to do what's best for my constituents. So what I think the people, not what I think, what I hear the people saying is they don't want to know that somebody is going to be beholden to anybody but them. We need to be accountable to the people.
So part of stepping up to the plate and running is telling the whole story. I've acknowledged I voted for the gas tax, and I've explained it to you. And oh, by the way, that was several years ago, and the people of House District 63, many of you saw fit to send me back to Columbia a couple different times since that time. What my opponent is not telling you in this process is that he was a member of two organizations, the Chamber of Commerce and the Car Dealers Association. And I don't think you're just a member, Mike. I think you were in leadership in those organizations, or at least heavily participated. And guess what? They were two of the biggest cheerleaders for passing the gas tax, because they recognized we needed to fix our roads. Let's tell the whole story. The other thing is, I have been the representative here now for 6 years, and Mike, if you felt so strongly about that vote, why didn't you call me or come see me and talk to me about it and explain your issues? I don't know if you were talking to the folks down in Hilton Head or maybe the representatives or senator down there, but you never once came and mentioned it a single time to me that you had such opposition to fixing our roads.
Yeah, 1 minute. Okay. So it's interesting as we talk about telling portions of stories and not telling the entire scenario. As we look at when I was chairman of the chamber, what we created was the Small Business Mentoring Program, which employs more people in South Carolina than any other industry. What I personally created was the Helping Florence Work program, which took every one of the Florence School District 1 new career counselors, took them to Florence Darlington Tech in the morning to see the entire array of what tech can do, and then took them to companies, Honda, GE Healthcare, Otis. Job creation and job growth, that's what our constituents want, not more of the same tax raises.
Mr. Rickenbaugh, if you return for your closing remarks, you have 3 minutes.
It's been a good night, folks. Thank you for being here. I want to thank those that watched on live, those that listened. This is a big decision, first time in 41 years. What we hear over and over as we do this listening tour and meet and greets, people want less politicians, they want more public servants. We hear that across the entire district. We need more businessmen, more businesswomen who have created jobs and know what it takes to do that. Elected officials who are going to be accountable for the decisions that they make, and more importantly, aren't going to owe anyone. They're not going to owe special interests. They're not going to owe lobbyists. They're not going to take checks from 1,000 to 5,000 to 10,000 from the same group, from the same address, on the same date, because they don't want to be beholden to anyone. That's not me alone saying it. That's the constituents saying it across the entire district. We've heard it from farmers to barbers to gas station attendants to retired military. Regardless of industry, people want their voice to be heard. They want fiscal responsibility and rigor. They want a government that says, let me get out of the way and let you be successful. Not let me go ahead and be a Biden and try to solve your problems for you, because it doesn't work. We see inflation at 7%. We see the price of gas, the price of milk, the price of bread, the price of home. It is going crazy, and you got to say to yourself, at what point do we step back and say, government doesn't make it better? It's been a long run, and I've heard neighbors talk about the lies being pushed by my opponents. We can only control what we can control. I know that the PD is better than this. I know, Jay, you're better than this. We as a community, we're better than this. And here's the reality. I win the election on January 25th, and I go in to serve you as the state senator. Representative Jordan keeps his leadership position in the House, and it's a win-win for Florence. Jay stays in the House in his leadership position. I go to the Senate. We work together with the rest of the delegation to move Florence forward. That's who we are. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I want to say God bless you, God bless South Carolina, and God bless the PD.
We end where we began. Thank you for taking time out of your life and schedule to come out and participate in this. If you were on a night like tonight, you care about who your next senator is. And whether you vote for me or Mike, I commend you for your caring about our area. I love Florence. I want what's best for Florence. I told you who I am and why I want such good things for Florence. I'll tell you a quick story. First time I ran for office, I got interviewed several times by the same fellow, reporter. I could tell during the course of those meetings and interviews, he didn't see the world the way I saw the world. He was, like a lot of our media friends, a little on the liberal side. The day before Election Day, he interviewed me one last time. We stood up, shook hands, and as he walked away, he didn't mean to, but he paid me perhaps the biggest political compliment I think could ever be given. He said, "Jay, we don't agree on a lot, but I believe you are exactly who you say you are." That's what I'm offering, ladies and gentlemen. I believe I've gone to Columbia and done my very best to represent you in a way that you could be proud of or at least respect. Florence is not a perfect place because we are not made up of perfect people, but I believe we have a great opportunity in front of us. We're trending in the right direction. Just this last year, you can look at Florence and see that I think almost 700 new jobs were created and almost $100 million in new investment in our area, whether that be expansion or new industry. And we're on the verge of doing so many great things here in Florence. I was proud to be in a meeting just a couple weeks ago of leaders as we discussed, whether it be from the foundations, higher education, industry. We've got so much opportunity here. We just have to grab it. It is a big decision. Senator Leatherman was probably the most powerful man in the state. And he could say Florence needs to go this way or that way, and we would go this way or that way. It's going to require a team effort now. And I believe I've shown that I'm capable of being a part of that team and helping lead that team, whether it's working with my friends on county council, whether it's working with the sheriff, whether it's working with those in Columbia to, again, pass good legislation and stop bad legislation. I humbly ask for your vote on Tuesday. Thank you.
A few more thank yous before we go tonight. First of all, we want to thank both of the candidates. Give them another round of applause. We also want to thank all of the sponsors, and this doesn't happen a lot, but we want to thank the technical people here who have taken this broadcast to a new dimension. Thank you for that. Just to give you an idea of the audience, we have over 100 people here in the hall right now. It's a shame you weren't here if you weren't. We have over 400 people viewing online right now, and of course that will go up. And those numbers together, I think, say a whole lot about the strength of the Republican Party in Florence, and we thank you.